Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. How are you? Better than me, I hope. At the point of recording, I'm feeling rough as old boots. Bit of a throat thing, and anyway, I'm struggling on regardless because it's the sort of fella I am. You know, you throw something in my way, I sidestep it, leap over it, carry on, regardless. So that's the plan, although speaking currently is a bit of a chore. So if this turns out to be slightly shorter, I know I can hear the rounds of applause all over the place. But if it does turn out to be a shorter episode, that's why. The throat's giving me a bit of this. Now, we are talking this week, you may well have seen, may well have heard, I beg your pardon, the podcast on Wednesday, and we are talking about Top Gear. If you are unfamiliar with Top Gear, you've probably been living under a rock for the last 20 odd years, I would have thought, maybe a bit more, because back in the 70s, in fact, that's right, it would have been the mid-70s, a television show called Top Gear started on the BBC, was presented by a gentleman called William Woolard, and he would test drive new vehicles. He would explain how comfortable they were. He would tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how ideal it was for the average business commuter, how many miles to the gallon it did, and were there enough cup holders on the dash to warrant that sort of business attire and approach towards a daily routine. It was a very sedate show, would often appear on a midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday evening. William Woolard was the presenter. Later on, they had Noel Edmonds presenting, probably early 80s, mid-80s. Jan Leeming, the newsreader, was also a presenter. They would go to various motor shows, whether that was the UK motor shows, the one in Geneva. They would go all over the place to find something out about the new car, the modern car, the car of the day. Later down the line, it took a breather. It wasn't on the screen for a period of time, and then resurfaced in probably the early-ish 90s as Top Gear once again, but this time I seem to remember Tiff Nadell possibly being involved in this side of the show, and a youngster by the name of Jeremy Clarkson, who kind of changed the way in which these types of programs were produced. Instead of simply talking about the car and about the possibilities and about its capabilities, he would then wax lyrical about a number of things that maybe people would have overlooked. You know, its excitement factor, its ability to excite the opposite sex, all of these type of things that many motorist or motoring journalists hadn't really taken into consideration. Later on, the show changed direction again and went from being a standard box central car show about reviewing cars to being more action-packed and taking an active role in seeing how good or bad these cars were through a series of challenges, or they would get professionals in to test them to the absolute limit. Over the years, there'd been a number of stunt coordinators. It's a BBC show, so they would have had to have brought in stunt coordinators to have worked with the presenters. But the presenters and the producers kind of put the presenters into a number of different scenarios whereby they were outside of their comfort zone. And over the years, of course, there has been well-documented accidents that have taken place, costing presenters many, many hours, weeks, months in hospital. Richard Hammond, of course, you will remember, rolled his jet vehicle at something like over 200 miles an hour and was put into an induced coma for a period of time. Jeremy Clarkson was driving a truck, pushed it through a concrete wall, gave himself extraordinary whiplash, and James May was also on the receiving end of some injuries along the way, received a very serious head injury, if you remember. And so we come to the new breed and the new version of Top Gear, which hasn't really ticked all of the boxes. It can never be compared to the previous show. It is a poor substitute. But again, they are attempting to push the envelope a little bit more. There's only one motoring journalist on the show, and the other two are Paddy Thingamajig and Andrew Flintoft. Andrew Flintoft, of course, the ex-England cricketer. Now, they are car fans, but they are not perhaps as au fait with a lot of vehicles as Chris Martin, rather, who is the professional. He's a driver, knows how to handle a vehicle, and talks about them a lot, knows them inside out. They've done some crazy things over the years with vehicles. And then there was images of Freddie Flintoft relatively recently with what had appeared to have been reconstructive surgery on his face. This wasn't vanity. This wasn't, I'm not really happy with the shape of my nose. I think I'll go and see a plastic surgeon and maybe have something exciting done with it. No, this was him having to have had a procedure or 9 because he was in a 3-wheeled vehicle. It was a Morgan. It was a 3-wheeled vehicle, and he had it at speeds of over 140 plus miles an hour. The thing was absolutely shifting, and had previously, if you remember, again on a trike, this was a 3-wheel trike, had got that to huge speeds and had got a wiggle on. The way that bikes do, you see them on the MotoGP if you're watching them, they get a slight wiggle on, then everything gets out of control and then the rider falls off. He fell off at speed, like about 140 miles an hour, walked away, not a scratch. The science behind that and the protective equipment he was wearing minimized the amount of impact with the road, the amount of inertia that was shoved through his body. And he walked away. In December of last year, again, now driving a 3-wheeled vehicle, it has a steering wheel, and it was travelling at 20 miles per hour when it managed to roll over and took half of Freddie's face away. He wasn't wearing a helmet because you're not required to do so. The airbag wasn't working or wasn't fully functional. That's to be queried. Would it have prevented the injury? You have to say no. It had it's an open top vehicle, but it has a halo system, very similar to the ones used in Formula One, which if the vehicle turns over, the driver is is protected by this halo system. Most drivers, though, in Formula One aren't well over 6 feet tall, and I think that is a factor here, because Freddie Flintoft is a very tall fella, and his head is very clearly in line with or above the level of the halo, and consequently when he's upside down, he's only wearing, I don't know whether he had a 5-point harness on, but certainly there was enough movement there for him to move, shift, drop from the seat, causing his head to have impact on the road. 20 miles an hour is not very fast. You're saying, how is it possible to roll a vehicle at 20 miles an hour? Here is footage of somebody rolling a vehicle at 20 miles an hour. It is simple enough. Vehicle there, and it goes up the back wheel and rolls over. Very, very, it looks, a real freak accident. Just runs up the back wheel and flips over. There is a roof on that vehicle. And that's the big factor. There is a roof on that. There was not a roof on the vehicle that Freddie was using, and consequently, he has had a disfigurement. I mean, it's fair to say, and enough surgery there to, which will heal over time, but it'll never be the same again. The question has to be asked: where do you draw the line? Have they gone too far? Are they still trying to compete with the Top Gear of old? The Clarkson, Hammond, May trio. Are they still trying to compare with that? And if so, does the stunt coordinator on the show need to have a heavier say in what is and isn't plausible? I'm conscious of the fact that everything these days needs to be done for real. The injuries that Freddie Flintoft sustained to his face, did they need to be done for real? I suspect not. I would also suggest for a moment that this is a roller coaster that's got out of control. It started in a relatively simple way. It got to a point, and then because of the egos evidently within the show, Clarkson's particularly, it all got a little out of hand, and they split and went their own separate ways. Stunt teams go with them wherever they go, whether that be to Amazon or any other station. But it's a problem. It will need to be addressed, and ultimately, presenters are presenters. They are to present the show. Yes, the excitement of the whole thing is seeing them in the driving position doing what they do, doing something that's just above and beyond, so that they can still comment on the vehicle and tell you how wonderful it is whilst power sliding round a corner at over 100 miles an hour. That's become the norm as far as these shows are concerned. My concern is, as with all of these bits and pieces, you've heard me say it before, something's going to go too far, somebody is going to get killed, and everybody's going to wash their hands of the whole thing. And I don't think that for a moment it should fall on any of the stunt coordinators or teams that are involved. They are a factor in all of this, certainly, but the producer and director ultimately will have the final say. You must have yours. I'd like you to have your say as well. And remember the way in which that these shows used to have some rather exciting bits and pieces. Well, we got some good stuff over the years. You know, they have produced the Top Gear Stuntman, if you remember him, which is the wonderful Derek Lee, professional stuntman. And here's a little look at Derek in action now.
It is also where Top Gear stuntman lives, in a house paid for with his film work. Take it away, maestro. This one really is a biggie. He's broken out the helmet with the visor. Now, the gap between the ramps is precisely 72 feet, and Top Gear's stuntman needs to be doing exactly 51 miles per hour when he leaves the ground.
This is looking good.
That didn't work. But just to be sure, let's see it again from several angles. Nope, definitely didn't work.
There he is, the wonderful Top Gear stuntman who is Derek Lee. You remember, of course, that the Stig was a certain Ben Collins for many, many years as well, and is into a world of professional stunt driving now. But yes, so that's Top Gear, and me personally, I liked the format they had with Clarkson, May and Hammond. You can't just take those people out and replace them with 3 different people. It doesn't work. They are the wrong people for the job at the present time, in my own opinion. However, it is something that ultimately the figures, the viewing figures, will look at. They, after this accident at the moment, they have, what's the phrase they've used? Shelved, I think, is the phrase they've used. Shelved the show. That doesn't sound like a good thing, does it? It may mean that they're off to have a rethink and maybe come back with a plan B. But I think the show has become too dangerous, to the point where a level of danger is absolutely expected on a weekly basis. And for me, I don't believe it should be. You have your say in the comments down at the bottom there. Next week, well, it is Taurus World Stunt Awards time. You may remember, a little while back, I had the nominations for the Taurus, went through them, made a few predictions. Let's see how accurate my predictions are when we look at the results, and that will be next week. So until then, I would ask you to check out the Pod Dojo Network, because they do everything as far as the podcast is concerned. And you have a good week. I'm going to try and shift this, whatever it is I've got, lurgy, and be fighting fit for next time round. Until then, it's bye for now.